Jim May started the Illinois Storytelling Festival. He has a way of bringing in elders, reminding all of us that we need to look towards our elders. He's an exquisite teacher. Many of us have experienced his workshop and his wisdom, and a great teller. Let's welcome Jim May.
Thanks, buddy. Thank you. I never served on the board. I got Beth to do it. But I went home and started a tent festival behind my mom's house in the village park, and it became the Illinois Storytelling Festival. We rented 2 tents. A local farmer gave us 1 tent. He said he'd give it to us cheap if we'd help him put it up. We put up that canvas tent with wooden poles and learned why circuses always have elephants. I've heard so much, I don't even think I have anything important to say anymore. I just want to comment on what was said before me, at least briefly, this idea of elders. James Hillman, some say the father of archetypal psychology, said there is a purpose for old age. It is a time when often we have less political, economic, social constraints, and we can get down to the business of working for the social good. This is not necessarily directed at our brand new 20s and 30s tellers. Connie mentioned forgiveness and resentment. I once heard that resenting someone and holding on to that resentment is like trying to poison someone else by drinking the poison yourself. And the resentment and the envy and the angst of that sort, the ego, we got to let it go, or we're going to stymie our creative selves, both on an individual level, and a collective level. That stuff is everywhere. We all know it, so we can face that and we can transform it. CETA, the Comprehensive Employment and Training Act. I used to work for those folks. I was a counselor. I once gave a guy county jail leave so he could go to the community college and study to be in a rock band. I got in a little trouble in that one. He ended up with an unfortunate liaison in the parking lot with one of the college board's daughters. But I remember Julie Neal saying, we ran the festival with a CETA grant, LBJ Great Society grant, out of 2 drawers in the bottom of my file cabinet in the Slemons house. So when you hear that government can't create jobs, that's just wrong. It's just flat out wrong. This, all of us, 40 years, we were a oral bailout, an orality bailout, and we have been on our own initiative ever since without any money. So there's that. I was minding my own business in 1979, teaching 5th grade. A friend of mine said he heard about this festival. We had exchanged ideas a lot. I got him interested in bird watching. I'm a bird watcher. Actually, we call ourselves birders. It sounds more masculine. He said it was really something. There's a First Nation man there from Canada, Ron Evans, who still is the story keeper the talking sticks in his tribe. There are 2 cousins from the mountains who would, with these heavy dialects, they kind of argue about who had the right version of Jack, Ray and Stanley Hicks. People telling on his front porches, church basements, let's go next year. Seemed odd to me. I didn't go. A few months later, he said, I got an extra pass to go down to see the breeding ritual of the greater Illinois prairie chicken. I packed my bags right away. And those little hormonally enhanced little guys, they would just dance, and when the females would come in, they would dance, and the hawks would swoop out just for the hell of it to get them all going again. And it was so amazing. And a little while after that, John says to me 2-3 months later, John, my friend, said, the 2 best things I've done professionally have all happened in the last 24 months. I said, what? He said, well, first was those prairie chickens. I said, well, yeah, I said. So secondly was that storytelling festival. Now he had my attention. So we packed up a bunch of 6th grade, 5th grade, 4th grade teachers in a VW bus, a Freakmobile, headed down. We changed drivers at Cumberland Pass. I looked down into my first holler. And the air was turning cold, and there was mist around the lamps, and it was a herald. I knew something was going to happen. Got here at 7 o'clock in the morning, had a very quick shower in the Clique Motel, got smashed a lot of bugs. I had my first cultural experience, multicultural experience, after having dinner at the breakfast at the Dinner Bell up in the hill. As I headed down the hill towards Tent in the Park, I knew right then, changed my life, I knew that Yankees knew nothing about making biscuits and gravy. But in that park, in that tent in the park, was Jackie Torrance. There was the smell of the grass, and there was the canvas. There was a sense of this is the way immediate community has been created since the Bedouins. And she held us in rapt attention for 50 minutes. And I went over to the hay bales, and Doc McConnell, who looked like one of my horse trading friends, he was telling stories. And I had this sense of these people who were of the land, and these stories came right out of the land. Like all good myth comes out of the land. Melodama Somé says the rocks have the oldest stories. And Ray Hicks, the next year I saw Ray Hicks, and it was an even more ancient voice connected to the land, connected to other continents, but right here. And then behind them, you had this board, this amazing board of Laura from Manhattan, and Connie involved in the National Organization of Women, and Jay, and more than that, Diane Wilkstein, who had found the first stories ever printed down on Sumerian tablets. You had all of that kind of worldview behind this, and then this deep roots right here. It was amazing. And then there was Main Street, which was like a hippie parade. It all just seemed right. I want to read one paragraph that kind of encapsulates for me what those first board meetings must have been like. J. O'Callahan was given the Lifetime Achievement Award last summer in San Antonio. Yes. And I gathered the letters for his nomination, and this one paragraph from Laura I think says a lot about those first early board meetings. Hope it'll give you a sense of it. Also a tribute to one of my mentors. Every so often, when I have needed a feeling of inspiration or joy, I have opened a book of photos from the years that I served on the board of directors of NAPS. My all-time favorite photos were taken around a wooden table where a group of us sat for days and days on end with what seemed like an inexhaustible passion for dialogue about storytelling in America. In every photo, J.L. Callahan sits upright, taller than the rest of us, his head turned slightly, because his presence and dedication to listening was uncanny and compassionate and always drew our attention. Jay was finding his own way in the world of uncharted territory at that time, carving out personal narrative about his family, including shadowy elements of politics and alcoholism in the form of uniquely original work. It was new American storytelling, a tradition new to us at the time. It was not based on culture or ethnicity. It was based on honest observation, and there was always the taste of Ireland in the background. But it was definitely genuine United States of O'Callahan territory. Jay had a total commitment to fair exploration and presentation of others as well. Exploration of the terrain of spoken word, sign language, solo theater, and living history were brought into our consciousness through Jay. So you had these fierce intelligence, modern intelligence, and you had connected with these deep traditional roots. I think wherever we go, and who knows where this organization is going to go, we have to keep that balance, this worldview, and this worldview that does not shut out politics or anything that happens in life. Jay used to say storytelling can be as broad and as deep as any literature. We have to keep that on the one hand. On the other hand, we can't lose this deep connection to the folk and the land. I remember Ray, I heard a recording one time, Ray was talking about committing suicide. His father hanged himself up on Beach Mountain. It was a hard life, still is for many people. I remember Ray saying, yeah, I said, I had the devil on this shoulder saying, get out of this thing, Ray, there's no good in it, get out of this thing. But the angel was over here saying, you got to stay here for your mama. You got to help your mama through it. But the devil would say, Ray, it'll be good, get out of this thing. Now we, as modern people, would have been saying, on the one hand, I thought this, on the one hand, I thought that. We've been having this kind of intellectual verbalization of this. But the traditional mind works different. The traditional mind speaks in character and in voice. We can't lose that. That's something about that aesthetic of jumping into that, out of the box, into a fictional, completely fictional character, rooted in antiquity. We can't lose that. I visited Duncan Williamson, the greatest storyteller in the English continent and Scottish language at the time, they said. And Nancy and I got there for a week just as he and Linda had split up. And he would say to me things, and he was a 19th century man, and she was a 30-something PhD from University of Wisconsin. After his first wife died, they got married, had two beautiful children, Tom and Betsy, and she brought Duncan to the world in all publications. But he would say, Jim, if I could have done anything wrong, if I would have made just even one mistake, I would understand her leaving. It's not the way marriages usually work. I can't understand it. Jim, if I could understand it. But all that week, he must have sang 100 times. An old country song goes like this. Put another log on the fire, brew me up another pot of tea, go to the car and change my tire, then tell me why it is you're leaving me. The traditional mind speaks in metaphor and song straight out of the heart. We can't lose that. We got to be modern. We got to have the roots in the land both. Good luck. It's going to be a great time. I don't think I'll be here to see it all. Love you all.
So I'd like quiet, and I'll have all of you stand up. And if y'all don't mind standing up here too, just for a moment's stretch, but quietly. Now, I'd like for the board members, if you have ever served on the board, to stay standing and everyone else sit down. In the back as well. Turn around and look, everyone. And on the stage. Thank you. Joseph Sobel is another powerful voice in storytelling. He's the one that wrote that book, The Storyteller's Journey. Take a look at that. Lots of interviews, very interesting. He's very involved and the head of the ETSU Master's Program. He's a musician, a storyteller, and he's a lot of our history. Let's welcome Joseph Sobel.
Thank you. Gary? Stay. All right. Well, I have some difficult stories in the terminology of my mentors, Elizabeth Ellis and Laura Nemi. The Great Divorce and the near-death experience. But I'll start it in a personal way. When my people get stymied and come to a crossroads, we go to graduate school. In the old days, we'd go visit the rabbi, or we'd go and retreat to the shul. And until the age of 40, our wives were expected to earn the living, and they usually did. And so did mine. Gary, could you get this damn thing to stand up straight? Okay, thanks. That's great. So in 1989, I went to graduate school at Northwestern, and I came thoroughly immersed, full immersion baptism in the romance of the storytelling revival. And so for my first paper in performance studies class, I wrote a passionate paean to the storytelling movement and the town of Jonesboro and their unlikely marriage. And it was beautifully written, and it was full of poetry and romance. And the paper came back to me, and it just had one letter on it, no other comments. It just said, B. And I'd never gotten a B before in graduate school. That's why I went back to graduate school, because I was used to getting A's and I wanted to get some more of them. So I went to the teacher and I said, "What is this about?" And she said, "Well, you write very nicely, but you didn't ask any of the tough questions." I really didn't like her. But I had a lot more classes to endure with her, so I had to take on her point of view to a certain extent. And so I started asking the tough questions. And what were those tough questions? Who was paying for this? And who was getting the money? What were the politics? Cultural, social, economic. And I had to weave that into my dissertation before I could get out of there alive. So when I finished 5 years of thinking about this, I realized that my organization, my professional organization, which had always been called NAPS, and that was a very nice inclusive term, it was now NSA, and it was in trouble. And I started thinking about why that was. And the biggest question was, why is Jonesboro, the town of Jonesboro, Tennessee, controlling our image of storytelling in the United States of America? And what are the politics of that? In 1996, I went to the American Folklore Society meeting, my other professional organization. And it was a hotel very much like this. And on the flight of stairs there, I saw Bill Ivey coming down the stairs. Bill Ivey had just been appointed by Bill Clinton the head of the National Endowment for the Arts. And Bill Ivey was a folklorist. And for many years, he had been the head of the Country Music Foundation in Nashville. Think about Mitt Romney appointing a storyteller or a folklorist to the National Endowment of the Arts. That's not going to happen, folks. I hope I offended someone here. Because the National Endowment of the Arts is one of those things. One of those organizations is going to be thrown out. I forget the others. But I suddenly remembered that I had had a tour 13 years earlier. The first month I went to the American Folklore Society meeting and the National Storytelling Festival in the same month, red letter date in my life. And Bill Ivey had given us a tour of the foundation, showed us, the archives, beautiful archives of country music, showed us Hank Williams' guitar, all these things. And I said to Bill, excuse me, could you tell me something about the Country Music Foundation? Why are there two organizations, the Country Music Foundation and the Country Music Association? And he said, oh, that's because the Country Music Foundation was set up to maintain country music in Nashville, Tennessee, and serve the interests of the local businesses and real estate dealers as a ceremonial center for storytelling, a Jungian slip, excuse me, as a ceremonial center for country music. And the Country Music Association is where the artists get together and celebrate the art and find the leading edges of the music and promote each other and each other's careers. Sound familiar? So I went home from that conference and wrote an email to all my friends on the board and got an email right back from Doug Lippman saying, we are doing that. We are working on that right now. Would you like to join a committee? Which is what happens when you have a brilliant idea. You are usually asked to join a committee. And I'd really recommend it because it's both a pain in the ass and it's the only way anything gets done. So, thank you. So we worked out the separation agreement and we agreed not to use the word divorce. And then Ed Stivenger said, Daddy got the house and Mommy got the kids. And we had this new organization which became known as National Storytelling Network. I think that was Lauren's idea too. And we had a great celebration and a great burst of organizational creativity. In that moment when we became free for a moment of the aesthetic strictures of what Jonesboro, Tennessee had laid down. And we started inventing things like special interest groups to articulate the great scope and breadth of the storytelling movement in the country. And we had the Healing Story Alliance, which became huge. It was the glamorous SIG because everyone wants to be a healer. So everyone joined that one. And then there was the storytelling in organizations and storytelling in education, storytelling in higher education. It's not necessarily higher, it's just older. But all of a sudden there were all these special interest groups and we were all excited. The one special interest group that never happened though, and this is really interesting and significant to me, was the one for the artists, the performers. They were too anarchic and busy managing their career. And they didn't like to serve on committees. So there still is no performing artist SIG. And whatever the reason for that, or reasons, it meant that control and influence in the organization drifted away from those great artists who had been the beacons of storytelling for the first 25, 30 years. Yeah. And that is still a problem. Really quickly, the near-death experience. We started off packing away money, being very good with our finances and assuring the continuity and stability of this organization. 10% of revenues went into a rainy day fund. We were in really good shape, and then we forgot about that. And we started spending money on special projects and not getting back and taking money out of reserves and money out of reserves. And at the end of 2006, Linda Jenkins Brown of blessed memory, our treasurer, warned us we were heading over a cliff, and nobody listened. And at the end of 2007, Linda Jenkins Brown bailed. She said, "You guys are going, I'm not going with you." And we looked at our books, and our coffers were empty. And so we met to decide what to do with National Storytelling Network. And I was sitting in a room because I was the secretary of the board. They made me secretary. I don't know. They thought I looked good with a laptop. So the idea that swept that room as we were meeting to decide what to do with the organization, the elders meeting, this was great. And these were people that I love and respect and have guided this organization and made it what it is. And the idea that came up was, let's fold our tents in Jonesboro. Let's take our guaranteed revenue stream, the 18% of festival gross, and turn that over entirely to the grants program. We won't have a staff, we won't have an executive director, and we won't have a conference. And it was a very exciting and innovative idea, except for one thing. To me, and I grew up as the son of a man who lost or quit every job he ever had because he was a gleeful and proud dissenter. So I took my father's mantle on my shoulders and I said, I dissent. To me, the thing that's most important about NSN is it gives us a place to get together, like here, now. And if that's the way you want to steer this ship, I will wave goodbye from the shore. And I wrote a Mark Antony's funeral address to the board. I come to bury NSN, not to praise it. And the board voted on a, like the Supreme Court, a split decision. And everybody who wanted to fold the organization and take it out of Jonesboro resigned and left it with us. And so we laid off most of the staff. We cut the budget in half. We put money away. And then ISC went bankrupt. Not us. But it was this close. So if you love NSN, if you want to have a place to get together and to raise the profile of storytelling as a profession and as a avocation and as a presence in America, join a committee. Stick with it. Invite your friends from the Moth. Invite your friends from the Story Slam. Invite your friends from everywhere to be a part of this inclusive organization, the National Storytelling Network. And I'm done. Thank you.